For many, video games was the first they had ever heard of Lana Del Rey.
Video game.
The single was accompanied by a self-made music video featuring archive footage spliced between clips of this promising new star. And then Blue Jeans arrived. The nostalgic aesthetic, the wistful vocals, the captivating pouty persona. It was a remarkable one-two punch from an unknown singer that made it difficult to not pay attention. Nearly overnight, Lana Del Rey became an internet phenomenon. Today, she's a Grammy Award-nominated, multi-platinum selling singer-songwriter, poet, model, and video director. Her album, Born to Die, has spent over 300 weeks on the Billboard 200, making her one of only 3 women to do so. Selling more than 7 million copies, its tracks have collectively been streamed over 1.5 billion times on Spotify. In the 6 months leading up to its release, Lana Del Rey had gone from a complete unknown to an international darling. To many, she was this indie queen who had somehow made it. But before she even released her major label debut, she became one of the most controversial figures to emerge in popular culture. As the public learned more about her, only more questions and criticisms followed. From her voice to her true identity, what were we to believe? Was Lana Del Rey an actual musical talent, or a manufactured sensation? On June 29, 2011, the video game's music video was uploaded to YouTube. The next day, it got taken down for including copyrighted footage, but the single started making rounds over radio and online music blogs. Lana Del Rey was somewhat of an anomaly. There's not much else like her. She occupies her own unique space in the pop spectrum. Given the musical climate of the time, Lana Del Rey challenged the pop status quo, labeling her as an alternative or indie artist. This led every internet music blog to offer some appreciation for the refreshing indie pop star. By August, Video Games was re-edited and uploaded. Soon after, a video for Blue Jeans arrived. The nostalgic aesthetic, the wistful vocals, the captivating pouty persona. It was a remarkable one-two punch from an unknown singer that made it difficult to not pay attention. But nearly overnight, the world learned of Lizzy Grant. Born in upstate New York in the mid-'80s, Elizabeth Woolridge Grant came from an upper-middle-class family. She sang all throughout her life, at school and in her church choir. She lived a fairly normal childhood until she reached her early teens. She began acting out, skipping school, and drinking. As a result, her parents sent her to a boarding school where she felt isolated, befriending only a teacher who introduced her to the musical legends of the past and some polarizing subject matter like Lolita. By the time she graduated, she sobered up and moved to Long Island, spending a year as a waitress. She lived with her aunt and uncle, the latter of which would teach her a few guitar chords, ultimately kickstarting her songwriting career. For fun, she began testing her songs at open mics in Brooklyn, as Lizzy Grant some nights and Sparkle Jump Rope Queen on others. At 19, she enrolled in university for philosophy. In her spare time, she would self-record acoustic tracks under the alias May Jailer. A few years later, she entered a songwriting competition. She didn't win, but an A&R rep from 5 Points Records took an interest in her talents, later offering to sign the young starlet. Lizzy took her signing bonus and moved into a mobile home in New Jersey where she focused her efforts on songwriting and video making. The demo she compiled had producers interested due to its distinct sound. In particular, a producer who's worked with Paul McCartney, The Strokes, and Stevie Nicks, to name a few. David Kane paired with Lizzy to release her debut EP, which saw Lizzy get featured as one of iTunes' Emerging Artists of the Year. Lizzy and Kane spent the year working on a full album. But at some point before its release, Lizzy wanted to change her stage name, and the album was put on hold until 2010. The digital release of Lana Del Rey marked the beginnings of her musical transformation. But it never saw a physical release, and within 3 months, the hopeful pop star pulled the album from iTunes. Lizzy felt nothing was happening, and now under new management, she asked for a separation agreement from her label. The young star and her management wanted a clean slate, removing any trace of the project from the web. Lizzy and her new managers moved to London, where they hoped her sound would be a little more appealing. It was also around this time when she would change her visual aesthetic, started cutting together her own music videos, and met fellow songwriter Justin Parker. Together, the two wrote the song that would launch both of their careers, and on June 29, 2011, the video game's music video was uploaded to YouTube.
did what I had to do.
The world learned of Lizzy Grant, her failed album, and discovered photos of her with label executives. The indie scene who had aided in launching her career felt deceived. The indie status of an artist is a large part of their appeal, but with it comes an expectation of being authentic and music that has a more confessional nature to it. And so, the internet quickly turned against her, believing that this Lana Del Rey character was fabricated by her management. When she was signed with Interscope Records and Polydor following the release of Blue Jeans, early fans began turning their backs on her, calling her a sellout. But as the public learned more about Lana Del Rey, only more questions and criticisms followed. Was Lana Del Rey trying to cover up her past? I don't think she was. The record they had previously made wasn't bad. All parties were pretty proud of it after the fact, even re-releasing it after Born to Die debuted. And the tracks found on the album could very well fit onto Born to Die. In fact, one of them did. Yayo was first featured on her 5 Points debut, and later reworked for the extended Paradise edition.
Yes,
There was a rumor that Lana's father paid to kickstart her career. That was a bit of a half-truth. He did help in promoting the 5 Points record. Lana's dad was in advertising before starting his own company of buying and selling domain names. He built his wealth and had the means to support his child's ambitions. Lizzy was truly talented, and after all, it's not every day your daughter records a record with a producer who's worked with some legendary acts. In whatever way her father may have helped, it didn't do her much good. When signing to 5 Points, Lana was still evolving as an artist and as a person. She had come up with the Lana Del Rey moniker at some point between her EP and the album's release. By the time she released the record, it was being marketed under 3 names, making it a bit of a messy release, and the album didn't see much attention. She probably felt discouraged and wanted to start from the ground up with the new stage persona she had finally solidified. She contacted a lawyer by the name of Ben Mawson to get her out of her label contract, and he soon took over as her management from that point forward. She wasn't hiding her past. Lana Del Rey was a fresh start for the young singer, so it's not surprising that she wanted to disregard her previous work as to not confuse future audiences. But was she forced into her image? That's debatable.
It was always the plan to just sort of create a sonic and visual world that I found to be beautiful.
She seemed to have had a vision of her music sounding cinematic and reflecting nostalgic black and white films. But when speaking with Pitchfork in 2011, she said, "I'm not trying to create an image or a persona. I'm just singing because that's what I know how to do." As for the origin of the name, she says she was spending quite some time in Miami, speaking Spanish with friends, and they landed on Lana Del Rey.
I knew that I wanted a name that sounded sort of exotic and reminded me of like the seaside on the Floridian coast, and Lana Del Rey sounded beautiful to me, and I was just I just wanted a name for the music that I could start shaping the music towards, just, yeah, something beautiful.
The name was a blend inspired by legendary actress Lana Turner and LA neighborhood Del Rey, Spanish for of the king. And she thought it sounded gorgeous coming off the tip of the tongue. And it does, but Lana said something concerning in an interview from 2010. "I wanted to be a band, but the label I was with and the team I had around me absolutely wanted me to be a solo artist. Lana Del Rey came from a series of managers and lawyers over the past 5 years who wanted a name that they thought would better fit the sound of the music. My music was always kind of cinematic, so they wanted a name that reflected the glamour of that sound." As far as we know, she had just only met Mawson the year before, so it's unclear who these managers and lawyers were at the time. All this quote really tells us, though, is that her team wanted her to be a solo artist and wanted her to have a more appropriate stage name that reflected her music. It's unclear whether or not she came up with the name herself, but I'll leave that for you to decide and whether or not it truly matters. In another interview, Lana says she even changed the way she sang in order to be taken more seriously. "I sing low now, but my voice used to be a lot higher. Because of the way I looked, I needed something to ground the entire project. Otherwise, I think people would assume I was some airhead singer. I've sung one way and sung another, and I've seen what people are drawn to." People were wondering if this transformation had been planned all along. Yes, it had been. When you start a business, you begin with a plan. There was a deliberate attempt to create a signature sound and image. Almost every artist ever has done this. Lizzy uses her Lana image to further her music. They're inseparable, but they are the same person. She's never strayed too far away from her roots, and she's always been in the driver's seat.
People who I've worked with know that I do
exactly what I want, and that's pretty much it.
Despite her 2010 comment, her new management nor her previous label were forcing her into this Lana image. She could have dropped the act whenever she liked. Then came the Saturday Night Live performance in mid-January that was called one of the worst outings in SNL history.
Big dreams, gangsters, said you had to leave to start your life over. I was like, no, please, stay here.
It left many to ask, can she actually sing? And yes, she can.
I don't know what you do, and I don't know how you get over someone as dangerous, tainted, and flawed as you.
It's safe to say Lana's SNL performance wasn't her greatest, but it wasn't nearly as bad as it was made out to be. I mean, we've seen worse performances on the late night show. This was Lana Del Rey's American television debut. She's a performer who admittedly has a bad case of stage fright, and going from playing small clubs to a television audience of 8 million in just months, can you blame her for being a little nervous? Perhaps she wasn't ready for the big time, but 2 weeks later, Born to Die was released, and as if unscathed by the harsh reviews and the controversies of the last 6 months, it debuted at number 2 on the Billboard 200 and number 1 on the UK albums chart. Lana's rise only continued with more television appearances, music videos, and brand deals. While most female pop artists were preaching of empowerment, a counter voice was bound to emerge. A woman fixated on themes of wealth,
Money is the reason we exist. Everybody knows it, it's a fact. Kiss.
self-destruction,
But I wish I was dead.
and hopeless romanticism.
I will love you till the end of time.
But how much of what she talks about in her music is fact? Is Lana Del Rey authentic? I don't think we're meant to interpret her lyrics literally. The things that happen in Lana's music could be true, exaggerated, or completely false. But the notion of her inauthenticity stems from the fact that she never seems to break this character, as outlandish as some of it may sound.
When it comes to my own music, it's 100% autobiographical.
Lana Del Rey only reminded us that authenticity is an illusion. The music we listen to, for the most part, is manufactured. It only balances sincerity and fiction in just the right ratios. Being a popular musician is inherently ridiculous and theatrical, and not every artist is inherently ridiculous and theatrical. Artists often create personas and sing about things in the first person that didn't actually happen. Lana Del Rey is no different than Beyonce, Gaga, Frank Ocean, Madonna, Bowie, Dylan, any other musical act. They play the part presenting themselves as something for you to enjoy. How certain are you that everything you're listening to is 100% genuine? There's not really a measure for how authentic music is, and I'm sure we all get tricked more than we care to admit. Born to Die went platinum. Lana Del Rey wrote Young and Beautiful for 2013's The Great Gatsby, and then the chart-topping remix of Summertime Sadness suitably closed out the summer. Her widely praised follow-up Ultraviolence saw her record her vocals in live single takes without any additional editing. It also fleshed out the details of her persona, breathing life into the character and framing her as a female who's aware of the tragedies she finds herself in. When Lizzy Grant released her music, it failed. She reinvented herself as Lana Del Rey, and it worked. Lana was a more calculated character. She looked different, but the songs were about the same. Regardless of the moniker she decided to embody, who her father is, or whether it solely existed to make money, Video Games was a unique and emotionally moving song. Had it been a bad one, no one would have cared to notice. After 7 years and 4 albums, her art has spoken for itself. Lana Del Rey has pumped out increasingly better music, and her upcoming release is getting anticipation from publications that once rolled her eyes at her. So, what are we to believe? Well, that nothing is truly authentic. Just enjoy what you enjoy and find out why after the fact. Or don't at all. If you're looking to fabricate your own musical persona, I can't help you. But this week's sponsor, Skillshare, might be able to get you started. Skillshare is an online learning community for creators with over 25,000 classes on things ranging from music production to graphic design, photography, animation. They have courses on pretty much everything, and you'll be hard-pressed not to find something of interest to you. I'm constantly learning to tighten up my writing with these videos, and Skillshare has been valuable in helping me get there. A premium membership starts at less than $10 a month, which gives you unlimited access to all courses. But the first 500 of my viewers to use the link in the description will get 2 months of Skillshare Premium for free. That's plenty of time to start learning a new skill or to pick up a new hobby. Thanks for watching, ladies and gents. If you enjoyed this video, please Give it a like rating, subscribe to learn more about the music you love, and don't forget to hit that bell so you never miss an episode. If you'd like to support the channel and earn rewards for doing so, please consider heading over to our Patreon page. Rewards include getting your name in the credits, video commentaries, and more. Tell me, what do you think about Lana Del Rey's rise to fame and her initial backlash? Does artist authenticity matter to you? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And that's it from me. Again, thanks for watching and keep listening.